Hello, I'm Mike Dev. Scratch is cool, as you can make virtually anything you want, be it an animation, game, artwork, or simply something more random. One of my personal favorite types of projects is all the cloud-based games. It's amazing that we have the technology to interact with one another in real time, from many miles away. And with this technology, we find ourselves with CloudLink. So what is CloudLink? CloudLink is my custom Scratch 3.0 extension. Imagine you have a game that connects to the cloud. Sure, you can play with some people, but for larger, more advanced projects, cloud variables are actually quite limiting. Here's why. For one, cloud variables aren't that reliable. Sure, they do WebSockets, but they can only use them once every 500 milliseconds or so before you overutilize them. So basically, they're very slow, and they take a lot of time to send and receive. They're very good for storing high score tables or maybe a basic phrase-based chat, but they're not much from there. You're also fixed to a very small 250 character limit, and you can only send numbers. Sure, you can perhaps set up yourself an encoding and decoding engine, but then you'll find yourself struggling with performance and overall capacity limits. Not to mention, it can barely even handle multiple connections. Here's where CloudLink comes in. CloudLink allows you to take control of how the cloud works. CloudLink, when hosted on a fast and zippy internet connection, can be used as much as you want, with latencies of at least 10 milliseconds. CloudLink has an expanded limit of up to over 1,000 characters in size. And the best part is that there is no limit on what type of data you can send and receive. It's entirely reliable, encrypted, and it supports full-speed multi-duplex connections. And it can even do all of this without even breaking a sweat. That's pretty cool, right? Today I will be showing you how to set up a basic project that connects to your own CloudLink server, and even set up a basic broadcasting project. You'll see how to utilize CloudLink to its fullest and learn how to scale up. You'll also learn more about server design and development. CloudLink runs on Python, so you'll need to make sure that you have the latest copy of Python 3 installed on your computer before you begin. Also, if you are wondering, no, you do not need a Scratch account to utilize CloudLink. Anyone can take advantage of CloudLink. However, if you do have a Scratch account, you can take full advantage of upcoming advanced features. Other than that, let's begin. Before anything can happen, you need to actually have a server. Let's get ourselves set up right now. Head on over to the GitHub repository and download a copy of CloudLink.py. CloudLink.py is the bare minimum you need to get everything up and running. Once you've downloaded CloudLink.py from the GitHub repository, you'll need to configure your system to run it properly. Open your command prompt or terminal and run the following command: pip install websockets async io. However, if you do not see pip working, or your machine already has the following installed, you can skip or use the alternative version pip3 install. Now, let's run. If you did everything correctly, you will see the following text. Now, let's actually set up our extension. Now we are inside the extension itself. On the bottom left-hand side of the screen, we have 4 new menus in the Blocks tab. We will be only focusing on the CloudLink menu at this time. Let's get familiar with the blocks. All of these diagnostic reporters return data sent and received to and from CloudLink. and including, of course, diagnostic data, as well as a built-in JSON parser for managing JSON encoded strings. We can connect to any server we want with the connect block and gracefully disconnect with the disconnect block. Let's get familiar with the connect block and our reporters. Here, I will place the connect block and connect to our server. By default, it always connects to localhost or IP 127.0.0.1 on port 3000. Here, I will connect to our server just by clicking on the block. Notice how my status reporter changed numbers. This is one of the most useful blocks and reporters you will have. It provides a simple and elegant means of diagnosing your connection. It uses a value between 0 and 4. Between the ready state, 0, which is the value it will return by default when you start the extension. 1 means that it is connecting. 2 means that we are connected. 3 means that you've safely disconnected. And 4 is something you should not ever want to see, as it means that something went wrong and you lost your connection. But at the moment, we have a very happy number 2, which means we are connected safely. And I can show you as well that on the server, we have a new connection detected just fine. Now, we can continue with learning about the connect and disconnect. Of course, disconnecting disconnects to the server. It will return 3 if everything went well. Now, let's get used to actually sending and receiving data. So, let's reconnect. Everything went well. And now, let's send some data. The send block allows us to send pretty much anything we want. For example, I just sent thing over the global data. The send thing block will always send everything publicly available to anyone connected on that server. I can send a lot of things such as apples, bananas, and even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if I really wanted to. But CloudLink is much more advanced than that. Let's try sending something over a private stream. However, we can't. You have to set a username. This is a basic feature that is required for all connections to actually work properly. Notice how I also grabbed the set a name as username block. This block, once you run it, sets a name to the username you want. I will set it to MikeDev instead, since I'm of course MikeDev. Notice how our usernames and my username values have changed. Usernames will return a list containing all the connected users on that server. The my username block will, of course, returns the input you sent. Usernames can help you with diagnosing connections if for some reason, for example, your application server stops working and unexpectedly disconnects, or to diagnose if an API is down. We will go over APIs later. Now, let's actually get back to sending private information over the private data stream. So at the moment, we are the only person connected on the local host. So, for the time being, I will send something to myself. The private data value updates whenever someone sends information directly to you. You will be the only one that sees that data. As you can see in the private data, we see something. And that is the bare basics of how to use CloudLink. But there is a few little things we want to actually add on to this simple program. Now at the moment everything's just lying about, doing absolutely nothing important when we press the flag. CloudLink requires timing and proper syncing in order to work to its best. So let's disconnect at the moment and clean up this code. Now, let's say whenever we start the program, we want to connect. But how do we make sure that we are connected? Let's say connected is introduced. We can fully implement connected with a wait until block. However, this does not take into account if something goes wrong. This is a very simple thing to implement. Notice how I said for means something went wrong. We combine the link status reporter with this value and the connected. This is the bare minimum for diagnosing a simple connection. If something goes wrong while the connection is being established, it will return 4 and everything else will stop working. If we are connected successfully, then do whatever we need. This is the bare minimum for a connection. Now let's run it. And we are connected. Also, notice how the global data is restored to what we sent it last time. Whenever we connect to the server, we will always receive the latest data sent on the streams, with the exception of the private data variable, as this requires you to have a username set on the server. Now, let's actually configure our program to ask us for a username and set it up on that server. So here I will move our little scratch cat here and place this here. It will ask us for our name and then set it up. Here I will disconnect us from the server and rerun this test. So when flag clicked, we connect and the cat asks us what is our name. I will say my name is MikeDev and it will set it correctly. Now then, you ask, how do we make sure that everything is connected when we run this code? The only disadvantage of CloudLink is that by default, these blocks don't automatically wait, as this is part of JavaScript being single-threaded. Don't worry though, we have our friend the wait until block, which manages that. And we also have this friendly reporter called username synced. Whenever we set our username, this block reads the username list and waits until, of course, it actually has our username, which at the moment it does. So once we run it, it will wait until our username is set on the server. So we will disconnect and rerun this test. What is our name? Our name is MikeDev. It waits until our name is updated and then continues whatever we need. This is the bare minimum, of course, well, extended bare minimum, to say so the least, of getting a connection up and running. Now, we can get to the fun stuff. Say, we want to send some basic broadcasts over the connection. Let's say when I receive message 1, we say hello. And whenever we send something, we want to say hello over the connection. Now, let's send something. And, of course, broadcast some event listening features. So, let's say, wait for broadcasts. And then whenever I start the program, I will always wait for broadcasts. Now let's introduce another block, the reset got new data block. Here we can choose between a global and private data stream, but since we're sending everything over our global stream at this time, we will only reset the global data stream. And we will also introduce the got new data block. This always returns true or false whenever we receive something new or not on the streams. Once again, we have our friend, the wait until block. Now, whenever we start up the program and connect, we will always wait for new data. Once we actually receive new data, we will then broadcast our message. And whenever we start, we can always get our hello. Now let's disconnect and test our little program here. Let's say when we press space, we send the broadcast. Now let's start. MikeDev is our username, and whenever we press space, we get hello from the cat. And that is a basic broadcast command. But now we need to figure out how do we safely disconnect. Let's say when we press Q on the keyboard, we simply stop all other running scripts and then disconnect. It's as simple as that. And now let's expand our program a little bit. Now, once we start saving, let's open ourselves up another tab. Let's open up our saved program and expand it a little bit. Here in our original tab, let's say that we want to send something to someone specific. Let's say, who do you want to send to? And then replace our send global data to send private data and set it to our answer. And now, of course, we can change this to private data. This will always listen to the private data stream and broadcast our broadcast block whenever we receive new data. And we can also modify the other side of our program to do the same. So, once again, send something to a person. Now, let's run our program. On both windows open, we get ourselves set up. Now, let's say 0 is our left window, and 1 is our right window. We have both of our windows connected, and we can see that through the usernames list. Let's say we press space, and let's say we want to send a broadcast to number 1. Here, on the right side where we see number 1, it has in fact received our broadcast safely. And we could do the same. Oops, I accidentally disconnected. Let's try that again. Now, we send our broadcast to 0. And of course, it receives it. And that, my friends, is a basic broadcast program and the bare minimum of playing or setting up CloudLink. But one final thing. How do we make sure that everything is fine? Well, let's say your user is lazy and doesn't want to safely disconnect. No worries though. CloudLink handles it automatically. Notice how the usernames list changed? CloudLink makes sure that everything is fine and dandy. From there, of course, that is all there is to it. And I will continue to expand this tutorial with our more advanced features, such as accessing the account, coin, and disk APIs soon. But that, my friends, is of course the bare minimum of how to use CloudLink. Until then, I'm Mike Dev. I'll see you all later.